How much of my stuff right here can you guys see? Probably a little bit more than what I want you to see. I've got like my whole office setup going on over here. Well, not my whole office setup. The laptop's not out here at the moment, but I have a couple books I'm reading. I've got my notebook that I keep all my like YouTube ideas in. I got like the my case. I got a lot happening over here, so it's kind of funny. Anyways, not the point. Not my point at all. I'm gonna make sure I got you in the right place. Welcome, travelers, adventurers, and story collectors alike. Welcome back to the wonderful world of the Phoenix is Rising. Today, we are still within the world, within the story, within the realm of the Sovereign Chronicles. I forgot what it was called for a moment. But welcome to the Sovereign Chronicles. Today's story, we're actually going to be telling basically one full-fledged story instead of telling a bunch of little bits and pieces like I have done previously. Kind of, sort of what I've done previously. And I'm also going to try really hard to keep this within a 40-minute mark, but I have very low hopes of that. So in our previous stories, we have established Teresa herself, and I'm sorry for all the moving around. I'm trying to get comfortable and make sure the lighting stays the same, and it's not being the easiest thing to figure out. So, oh, you can see my water bottle if we do it that way. That's fine. That's fine. There we go. How's that? That okay? I think that's okay. Okay. Anyways, we have established Teresa herself, being our hero, our leader, the person who is in charge of the kingdom. She is the Captain Kirk to Azarium. She is the Harry Potter to the Sovereign Chronicles series. I keep forgetting what it's called for some reason. She is our main heroine, the person who's in charge, making the decisions. She's the one that we will be following for majority of these stories. We've also been introduced to Sir Peter. He is the McCoy to the Sovereign's operations. He is the Ron Weasley to Teresa's friends. He's the one that has he's supposed to be on the emotional side of everybody. He is the one that thinks of the people, thinks of the emotions and the, I can't think of a better way than the people of Azarium. He's the one that reminds the Sovereign of the smaller picture, I guess, as it were. The individuality, the people, keeping things within that realm. Being caught up in emotions, a very reactive, I think is the right word, fellow, Sir Peter. So the only person that is now currently missing within our nice little regiment of characters, I don't know why my phone's going off. The first one was a text, which wasn't that important. And then the second one, was also a text, and also Google Maps yelling at me for some reason. I don't know what's going on. I haven't got a clue. I got nothing. I have absolutely nothing. Sorry. Okay. Anyways, so within our nice little our main characters suite that we have going on, we have the Sovereign, we have Peter, but we do not have our third person in our trio. We do not have our Spock or Hermione Granger. Can you tell that I'm a nerd? Can you tell that I grew up with all sorts of stories and fandoms? I think it's probably pretty obvious at this point, like extremely obvious at this point. Anyways, we don't have our third person in the trio, and today's video is going to be all about introducing the third person within our trio. I was gonna say his name. Can I say his name? Yeah, I can say his name. Welcoming into the scene, Jacob Valor, or mostly known throughout my all of these stories. He's primarily going to be known as Sir Jake. We got Sir Peter, we got Lady Teresa, and he's Sir Jake. Just to keep it easy, I'll be using the names that I call them on a day-to-day basis. So we're going to be introducing Sir Jake. Again, as much as my other videos, I have to decide how much of the story and how much of the behind the scenes story I've got to talk about. But we're going to start with just introducing him in general. So Jake is from the Northern Mountains. He's from a town up there. But when he first shows up, no one knows what town. He does not tell what city or even what country he's actually from. But everyone kind of guessed pretty early on that he is from the north. He is a Nordic. Yes, heavily inspired. Well, not heavily inspired by the Vikings when I made him and his people up, but in like hindsight, yeah, kind of inspired by that, but not like fully inspired by that. Anyways, because of his appearance, his accent, things along that line, he is pretty quickly pegged as being from the Northern Mountains, being a whole Peller, and much bigger. A lot of the people from the mountains tend to have a lot of giant blood within them. Not everyone, but a good chunk of people, especially the specific part of the mountains that he's from, which would be the northeast-ish. But again, you're not supposed to know that yet. But anyways, so he's actually this really big guy. His size changes on how tall he is. But last time I think I came up with it, he was between like 6'5", 6'5" or 6'6" in height. So a really big, strong, tall dude. He's also got like the broad shoulders, just a really big. He's got giant blood in his body. He's not part giant. He doesn't have that much, but he has just enough giant blood within him that he's a big fellow. Anyways, he first shows up in our nice little Azarium storytelling as being hired onto the stables for the Sovereign's estate. The Sovereign has inherited the estate from the previous Sovereign, because there may or may not have been romance involved, unclear. So she has a whole estate that she now runs on top of running the country. And then on that estate, she has the stables. We use horses. Horses are cool. We like them. And Jake is originally hired on, or she first hears about him being hired from the head stable guy. I don't know what you would call him. Anyways, he goes by Jacques. Jacques, who runs the stables, who's in charge of the stables, taking care of all the animals on the estate, taking care of like all the horses, all the other pets. There's quite a few animals running around. We'll get into some of the Sovereign's personal pets at a later date. I don't know when I'll talk about them, but they'll probably show up eventually. I know there's at least one story that talks about them, but that's pretty far in the future. Anyways, not important. Got to keep this under the 40-minute mark. That's what I'm hoping. It's not going to happen. It's so not going to happen. He's hiring on a bunch of people to help with the stables. Actually, a lot of the different positions on the estate are currently hiring in a bunch of new people because the Sovereign needs a lot of help. So Jake, he's no Sir Jake, no last name or anything. Jake himself is hired on to be working within the stable. And that's really all anyone really knows about him at first. He ends up being, the Sovereign, just kind of runs into him. Not literally, not yet. Anyways, sees him, inquires about it, or she gets told, like, we hired on someone to help out in the stables with everyone else, because there are like a lot of hands that are helping in the stables. And she probably inquires like who he is, and it's like, I don't know, he's from the mountains, but he knows how to take care of animals and horses, and so he's kind of working with us at the moment. So not really too much is known about him. He's just kind of chilling. Nothing exciting. The Sovereign Knight doesn't even really like catch his name fully until a little bit later, until she does literally run into him one morning while she is out walking, talking to someone. I thought originally it was Sir Peter, but that actually wouldn't make too much sense. She's out wandering the grounds talking to someone, probably some official. Odds are good it might have even been Lady Polly. Rounds a corner without thinking, without literally looking, and runs straight into him. It's a little unfortunate. She falls down because he's gigantic. It was like running into a wall. Not the greatest way to be introduced to the current ruler of the country that you're living in. Jake immediately gets a little like flustered over it because he just basically ran over the Sovereign, which is, great. The Sovereign takes it just fine, though. Neither one was paying attention. It was an accident. She's completely like covered in like horse feed now because he was carrying some of it. She thinks it's funny. She finds it very funny and doesn't bother one iota or anything. Sir Peter is there though. He tries to call out and warn her before she runs into him, but the warning comes a little bit too late. Runs into him. The Sovereign exchanged a couple words with him and immediately takes interest because of a couple of different things. One, just as a stranger she hasn't met before, she likes getting to know everybody and anyone that she can. She's very extroverted. The Sovereign is a very extroverted person. But another thing that she notes very quickly about him is, one, his speech. He he's very quiet, not like with a quiet voice, but he only says as few words as possible to convey that he's sorry that he ran her over. And the second thing that she notes about him is actually more of his demeanor, which is what she notices basically first. She notes him as working within the stables, being a hand on the estate, but he doesn't hold himself like a regular stable person, a regular worker. Does that make sense? He has this whole aura or like feel to him of being raised or at least having experience in a higher state within this. And I have to take the sweater off. Sorry about this. Okay, I had to take my sweater off. It's getting a little too warm in here, which is why I'm filming this in the afternoon and not in the morning like I was going to earlier. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. He comes off as like being from noble birth or being a knight at some point or something along that line. And he kind of like holds himself and acts that way. So she gets a little interested in that and the fact that he's the new person, doesn't know who he is, all of this. So later down the line, she does do a little bit of inquiring, talking to like Jacques and a couple other people who have interacted with him. And all the mystery just kind of grows with him. No one really knows anything about him. He does not divulge any information about where he was from, family, relations, friends, what he's doing. None of that. Very quiet, very private person. Not that he necessarily like avoids the questions. I guess he does avoid the questions, but if he gets straight up asked them, he'll answer to the extent. But for the most part, he's very, very secretive of a lot of things. And I'm just now like talking about this out loud and I'm going, these are probably some red flags for being in the estate of the ruler of the country. We're ignoring that. Who cares about any of that? So she gets a little bit interested in all of this. Her curiosity gets the better of her. So she does start like, whenever she has a chance or just happens to be in that area, just happen to go and want to go ride her horse. She does have a horse, by the way. I don't know what kind of horse it is. I'd have to go ask my sister because I know in my head what it looks like. But she does have a horse, and his name's Winchester. Not relevant to the story. I just thought it'd be a fun fact to throw in there. Horse, Winchester, her steed for like most of the stories. Anyways, not the point. And so she goes and talks with him a couple of times and doesn't really get too much more information than that. All she really finds out from straight up talking to him, and still being polite about it. She wouldn't like straight up go and ask a question. But the best that she can come up, the only real things that she knows is that he does confirm that he is from the Nordic mountains. And that's really about it. Like, he's from the Nordic mountains. He's down here looking for work. He got work. That's it. That's all he really knows. He did tell Jacques, like in the hiring process or something, that he grew up in the stables, knows how to work horses. That's really it. No one else really knows anything about him. And this makes the Sovereign even more intrigued by him. The fact that she can't quite pinpoint him or peg him down on anything, I don't know if anyone else is like this, but when you when I meet someone, I can usually like I can get a feel for that person almost immediately. And then I turn kind of a little bit into like a chameleon and I kind of like can match that person's energy wherever they are. It's one reason I absolutely love working with kids is because then the kids always come in with these like different energies and it's like very easy for me to match those energies and go with it and work with it. And so the Sovereign, being my main character I grew up with, she's very much so similar to that, being able to kind of read people's energy, and then I add on to it that she's actually really good at reading people in general, like she's really good at like the human behavior and stuff like that, but she can't do that with Jake, basically, and it intrigues her / like annoys her a little bit. Not like a lot, but like a little bit. But mainly it just intrigues her because here's a person that she can't get a read off of. She can't figure him out, figure out who he is or what he is or, you know, anything along this line. And it just really intrigues him. And then all of this kind of makes Peter very, very nervous. I don't know if Sir Peter is the general of the armies at this point. He probably is. But if he's not general of the armies, he's captain of the royal guard at this point. So any way of it, his number one purpose is to make sure the sovereign doesn't get herself killed. And the fact that she's paying this much attention to this stranger that no one knows anything about makes him very, very nervous. And he kind of comes up with this like cold shoulder towards Jake and doesn't particularly like him, even though he hasn't really talked to him or anything. And just immediately very mistrusting, because that's his job, of Jake in general. So he kind of tells the sovereign off a few times, being like, you don't know who he is. Stay away from him. He could be someone here to kill you. Because, I mean, the country's still kind of like wishy-washy because of the whole war and everything. Still trying to rebuild this. She's still trying to basically prove herself to the country, which is something that she deals with off and on a ton throughout a lot of these stories. And so Peter's kind of just like reminding, there's a gigantic fly over there. It's very distracting because he's over there at the moment, but he keeps like flying behind my curtains. Anyways, not relevant to the story plot. He's just very distracted. So if you see my eyes wander at any point, it's because I'm tracking. I'm just following him. Anyways, not the point. The sovereign acknowledges that she's going to be very careful about this because you're right. It could be very much so be a bad guy of some sort there to, you know, kill her probably or whatever. She still is very interested though, like just on a, I don't know, she just is. Sir Peter apparently decides to do something about it. Sometime after him first showing up, the sovereign goes out to where the sparring matches, the training grounds are. Throughout this whole thing, she is actively training to become a sword fighter, self-defense, all that sort of stuff. So she frequents the area quite often with all of that, being trained primarily by Sir Peter. I think I mentioned that in one of the other stories, that Sir Peter is Azarium's best sword fighter, especially at first. He's definitely their best sword fighter, or one of the best sword fighters. Most of the time he's the best. Occasionally he gets the one of the best title, depending. But for the most part, for the point of the story, he's the best sword fighter. He's also close friends to her, so he's the one that's training her most of the time. So a lot of her skills when it comes to fighting and stuff comes from him. And if not him, one of the other highly renowned knights and guards. There's a handful of them. So Clark. Sir Clark is one, and then Sir Orion are one. Sir Clark, I think, is a human, and Orion's a centaur. And both of them show up, come and go. They're kind of like semi-main character. They're reoccurring characters. They both work within the army, and they're both pretty high ranked. Not higher than Sir Peter, but they're both pretty high ranked. I don't have pictures for them or anything. They're that minor of characters. So she also gets a lot of training from them, obviously. But anyways, the point is, one day, a couple months after Jake gets hired, she goes out there, and there's a big crowd, and it's a very exciting crowd around the like a sparring arena or spar match. And a spar match is happening, and so she kind of like sneaks up behind everybody and talking to one of the other guards or maybe a servant who's watching. In the middle of the arena, in the middle of this crowd of people who are watching, very intrigued by this, is Sir Peter and Sir Jake, and they are sword fighting, and it's a full-on sparring match between the two of them. The sovereign kind of keeps back. She doesn't want to really distract either of them. She doesn't want anyone to really know that she's there, though she is talking to a servant or a knight who's also watching, where she asks asks what's going on, and a very simple answer being like, oh, they're just kind of sparring and sword fighting. So she hangs around and she watches at the back of the crowd, basically, and was watching the two of them fight, and she finds it rather surprisingly that Jake is holding his own. Kind of proving the point that she had originally thought of him being a someone with a little bit more background history than just working within the stables, because he's very much still having to work to hold his own against Sir Peter, but he's also making Sir Peter work for it also, and it's a pretty fair match between the two of them in general. Let's see. Sir Peter does start to take the lead. For the most part, he is leading throughout the whole thing, and starts taking the lead in general in the sparring, the sword fighting, as it were. For a split second, it looks like that Peter is actually going to best Jake and going to win, and then Jake makes some sort of sword trickery movement, and no, I have no idea. I'm not a swords person. I have no idea what it is. But he pulls a trick that Peter has never seen before, ends up disarming Sir Peter and knocking him over at the same time, besting Sir Peter. Now, taking out of the story for the second, this is actually, for the longest period of time, this is the only time that Jake does actually beat him. It takes him years before he ends up ever being able to beat Peter in a fight again. This is he does end up eventually getting to a point where he can best Peter. Like sometimes one or the other best them, depending on which one's having the worst day, I guess. But it takes a few years after this point. So he for the most part never beats him again, all intents and purposes. He only manages to do it this one time at first, because he does a trick that Peter has never seen before. And then Peter does immediately turn around and tell him, you've got to teach me that trick so I can, well, one, stop you from using it on me, and then two, so I can test anyone else that shows up. But anyways, the point is that Jake does beat him. He ends up beating him, and in doing so, earns the respect of a lot of the people watching, and oddly enough, the respect of Sir Peter as well. He still doesn't trust him. Sir Peter still doesn't really trust Sir Jake, because we still don't know anything, or Jake, he's not a Sir yet. Doesn't know anything about him, but he does end up kind of respecting him. Sir Peter is also putting it together that there's a whole lot more to Jake here than meets the eye. So the two of them kind of walk away with this newfound kind of respect, sort of each other. Tensions are that Peter still doesn't fully trust him or anything. The Sovereign's amused by the whole thing and pretty much ends up right there and there, decides that she's going to go be friends with Jake. She thinks he's cool. I don't know. She doesn't have a problem with any of this. It's amazing that she doesn't die within the first year of her being sovereign, but that's besides the point. So the whole time that this is going on, the whole time we have this mysterious Mr. Jake hanging around. Sir Jake. I don't think they use misters. Anyways, it's actually leading up to being summer, and the summer festivals are fixing to take off within Azarium. Now, I can't tell you details because it was a long time ago I made them up, but I made up 4 major holidays, one for each season that Azarium and the surrounding countries celebrate. Let's see, the fall was the easy one. It was a harvest celebration, big old, harvest celebration. That one was easy. For spring, I'm doing this out of order so I can give my time for my brain to think. For spring, is their new year is in spring, because that makes sense to me. In the middle of winter, they have a really big celebration that's kind of a mix between Christmas and Easter, which I will try to find my notes on that one and remember how that works, because that is a story plot down the line that involves a couple story plots that involve that holiday. But it's basically Christmas. It's basically a 2-day celebration of a mix between Christmas and Easter. Basically the coming and then the death of their savior, of their Jesus. It's complicated. And it's basically a 2-day in middle of winter celebration going on there, fighting against the darkness type thing. And then in the summer, on the longest day, is their summer celebration, and it's just basically a really big festival. It's a reason to celebrate. It's a big long festival. It's probably, sitting here thinking about it, it's probably a couple days to a week-long festival. Think summer fair type things, where there's going to be trying to think of fairs. There's going to be animals. There's going to be different stalls, people auctioning things off. There's going to be performances. There's going to be sparring matches and jousting and archery archery competition. There you go. sword competition, sword fighting competition. There's probably going to be races, both on horses and on foot. Just like this big, long, week-long celebration. The summer festivals. The preparation for that is going on, leading up to the spar match where Sir Jake defeats Sir Peter, and so that this whole time that this is going on, the Sovereign's actually putting a lot of focus into this, and a lot of the country is putting a lot of focus into this as well. It being one of the first, or being the first big celebration that she's going to be participating in as the Sovereign. It's kind of a big deal. You know, she's got to go be the person who cuts the ribbon and give out the awards for the competitions, and, you know, the public face celebrating it as well. So she's preparing for all of this, and all of this is going on. Leading up to it, it's probably a couple days before the actual celebration, and we swap to a little bit of following Jake. Jake's wandering around. I don't know what he's doing. He's doing something. It's late in the evening, and he's walking from one place to another here on the estate. He's been living on the estate and stuff, and he overhears some things, and he doesn't see who it is. By the time he actually gets to where he hears the voices are gone. But he does overhear some voices of a couple of people who are planning to assassinate the Sovereign at the summer festivals. But he doesn't see who it is. He does not get an idea who it is. He hears like 2 or 3 voices, and by the time he gets over there to go and investigate, they're gone. He doesn't see anyone. He has no idea who it is. He didn't recognize the voices, but he hears it though. He heard enough to know that there is a couple people who are planning this. So Sir Jake has to decide what to do. The first thing that comes to his mind is obviously to go and tell the Sovereign and Sir Peter and be like, hey, someone's going to try to kill you. The problem is that he is a stranger in a strange town. He has another reason, and he doesn't know who it is. So he doesn't really have anything. It'd be his word against someone's word, and he doesn't know who it is to blame. And even if he did know who it is that is going to do this, he still have a few hesitants because he has a few things and a few reasons that I will not divulge that he has, that the fact that him going to the Sovereign and Sir Peter and telling this could cause some problems for him in a different way that would be unexpected. So he hesitates, and especially since he doesn't know who it is, he decides to keep it to himself, but keep an open eye to things. And he does. He spends the last couple days, or the last 2 days leading up to the festivals, the beginning of the festivals, keeping an eye out, trying to figure out what's going on, playing detective a little bit. And if this was like a TV show, we would see little clips of him in the background as the Sovereign is walking past, talking to Sir Peter about what they're going to do at one of the celebrations, or one of the festival days of the festival. And we just see Jake kind of like walk and pause and then walks the other way, you know, and the camera follows him a little bit as he's investigating, but he doesn't do anything else. He just watches and then he observes. And we go to the day of the festivals. I think it was straight off in the first day of the festival. She has this like big speech that she gets to go do because she's the Sovereign, Teresa. So she, on a stage, you know, as one does, has this like, it's like a welcoming speech to the people to the festival within the capital city that her estate is outside of. We've got the main town that she's near, and then right outside the town is the her estate. So the festivals are going on in the town. That's where she's kind of hanging out at the moment. Sorry if this thing is making the audio weird. So she's up there. People are chattering. Everyone's really excited. There's some awesome, you know, have you ever gone to a fair, or like a street fair, or like a big public celebration of some sort, like a tree lighting or something? You know, there's like this like buzz in the air, good vibes, you know, what's going on. That's happening. She's up there giving her grand old welcome speech, you know, being the face, showing her face to the public. And immediately is knocked down, like a bulldozer rams her, and she falls straight to the ground, startles her completely out of nowhere. The crowd goes silent. No idea what just happened. She goes down hard, and then she kind of rolls over to see what happened. Jake's on the ground with her, and there is a arrow in the post right behind her. And if she hadn't been tackled to the floor at the right time, the arrow would have gone straight through her and she would have died. It was Jake. Jake somehow sees what's fixing to happen. He like spots it was probably a crossbow, not an actual arrow. Maybe it was a bow. I don't know. It was probably a bow. It would make more sense. I don't know. Anyways, he sees it's fixing to happen. So he does like the old fashioned get down, Mr. President tackle, takes her to the ground, kind of gets everyone a little startled. The other guards and knights like at first go after Jake, thinking that he had tackled her for whatever, attacked her basically. And then they all kind of see the bowl and see some people running off, and they kind of realize what's happening. And so they take off and leave, to go chase the actual person who tried to kill her. Who never get named or anything. I assume they got caught. I don't think I ever made up who it was or necessarily why either. Well, the why is probably pretty simple. She's a foreigner, a stranger in this land, and there's a lot of people in Azarium that doesn't like that fact that she's in charge, even though she's not natively from the country. So it probably had something to do with that, or it could have been a supporter from Loten who did it, so Loten can take over. I don't know. I never made it up. That wasn't the important part of the story, so I never made it up to the story. But the part that is important is, I gotta wrap this up. I got 10 minutes. I might be able to make this in 40 minutes. Is that Jake saved her life, basically. So now he has won her respect and won Sir Peter's respect in a different way. Yeah. I mean, he gets like celebrated a little bit throughout the summer festival for being the person who saved her life, and she kind of really likes it. She's not dead. That's pretty cool, right? That's basically the beginning of all of this. In between this story and the next story, Peter and the Sovereign talks about it, and they basically hire him on to be a knight. He's showed his loyalty to her by saving her like that. Peter's already kind of like likes him anyways. She definitely does too. And it is he becomes part of the Royal Guard, and he ends up being over time, he actually becomes the captain of the Royal Guard very quickly, and he also becomes not only a very close and dear friend of the Sovereign and Sir Peter, but also part of her inner court, which is an obvious, I guess. But yeah, he does become a very close friend to both of them. I try to figure out how Peter and Jake, they're bouncing off each other basically. Jake is a very quiet person. Now I gotta talk a little bit outside of the story. Jake is a quiet person and tends to be very personal, not the most open person for many reasons. But he's also a very, very intelligent. He has, I forget what it's called, but he has the ability when he reads something or learns a new information, he remembers it. Whatever it is that he reads, he remembers it. Point blank, period. Almost a photogenic memory. Photogenic? Almost, but not quite. Primarily it has to do with him reading it or getting new information. He remembers it. So he's an incredibly smart, intelligent person. He's the brain. He's the Spock and Hermione of the group. He's the brains between the three of them. He tends to be the person that will get Peter and the Sovereign to think about things logically and not just immediately act on emotions or on their heart. He's the brains. He's the smart person. He kind of keeps the other two a little bit on the grounded side and not just immediately rushing off and acting immediately. He's the one that makes them stop and think out a proper plan and then goes and reacts. Other traits, he's incredibly loyal to Azarium, to the Sovereign, to Peter. Peter and Jake basically become brothers for the most part. They're very, very close, very quickly becoming very close. Jake and the other knights find it easy to mess with Sir Peter, which is always fun. Sir Peter really likes the fact that Jake is very honest, I guess, very loyal, kind of on the honesty. Don't think I didn't forget about any of that. But since he starts hanging out with the other two, he does divulge a little bit more information about his past over time. He basically tells them that he fled from his home country in the mountains. He confirms he is from the mountains, and he says that he fled from them due to some sort of reason, some sort of issue that he was involved with. Nothing illegal, technically. But he did have to flee from his homeland with his remaining family. The Sovereign and Peter don't really find out who that remaining family is until later, but he does tell them that he has remaining family that fled from the mountains with him, who are staying in Nazarium as well. And he fled because they fled, and they all fled because bad things were happening in the mountains and they had to get away from it. They ended up in Nazarium. He started looking for a job to provide for the family. What little family there is. And that's basically how he fell into this. He also does kind of confirm sort of that he did grow up in nobility. The Sovereign and Sir Peter both kind of assume some sort of knighthood is what he was raised in and born in. Kind of would make sense with his personality and his whole character. Again, he is very much so comes off as a knight, as someone from noble blood and who was raised in nobility to some extent anyways. He's also excellent sword fighter. He's actually a really great horseman. What do you call that? Rider? Horse rider? He's really good with the horses. He knows how to ride. He's like really good at riding horses. That's why he was working in the stables and whatnot. And so he kind of gets brought into this fold with a little bit of mystery still. There's still a few things, a little bit of mystery hanging out, but stuff that both the Sovereign and Peter do not necessarily find out about until very much so later. Just put a pin in all of that, in his story on why he's here in Nazarium. We'll put a pin in it. Don't worry too much about it. He's 100% a good guy. Him, Sir Peter, and the Sovereign, they are my main trio. They are the three that we follow for the rest of the Sovereign Chronicles. And things develop, stuff goes on. The last thing that I will discuss on this is the full-fledged relationship between the Sovereign and Sir Jake. The Sovereign and Sir Peter, 100% brother and sister. Point blank, period. Sir Peter has sisters. The Sovereign has brothers. They 100% see each other as brother and sister. Peter and Jake just see each other as brothers. Point blank, period. They are very close, very much so brotherly to each other. Point blank, period. Peter and Jake, the Sovereign and Jake, a little bit more complicated. Tiny bit more complicated. When I first originally introduced Jake to the series, he was originally introduced as the closest thing to a love interest the Sovereign ever had. That's how he was originally introduced. That's actually what I'm going to leave it as, honestly. The closest thing to a love interest she ever had. There are a couple of different reasoning on this, and I'll stick with her for the most part, because I can't talk about him without telling, spoilers for other stories down the line. She is fascinated by him, is interested in him, but does not see herself in a position to do anything about it. Does that make sense? This is going to be a little weird for me to try to explain. No, it's not. It's not weird. It's not that hard. I just keep trying to make it difficult to explain when it's not that difficult to explain. The Sovereign is 100% dedicated to the country and to her title and to her position and her job. She's basically married to the job of being the Sovereign. Even this early in her story, where she's only been the Sovereign for like 6 months or something along that line, she is still 100% dedicated to the job, basically married to the job. That's just it. So she doesn't allow room or even allow herself to think about marriage or being in a relationship for a very long time. It doesn't even really cross her mind. And when it does, she immediately dismisses it because she does not see herself having the time or being able to put effort into it. She's running a kingdom. She's running a kingdom that is recovering from a war at the moment. She doesn't have time for marriage. And that's kind of where I'll leave that, if I'm honest. They're could be a little bit of a spark between the two of them, between Jake and the Sovereign, but the Sovereign immediately dismisses it because she has higher priorities at the moment than that. And that is actually where I'm going to leave this. What do you know? It's 42 minutes with a little editing down. It should be about 40 minutes, which I'm pretty excited for. And that's the story. So we finally have our main trio for Azarium. For the Sovereign Chronicles, we get a trio. Now the other series, because we're going to start talking about the other series here. We've got the Sovereign Chronicles. We have A Girl and Her Starship. We have the Phoenixes, not to get mixed up with the whole series in general, which is called the Phoenixes Rising. They're two separate titles. Yes, I regret naming both of them Phoenixes. And then we have the Renegades. So we have 4 main series, right? I said this in the first one. And we're pretty established within the Sovereign Chronicles now. Don't worry, we're going to be diving into a ton more of their stories and things that happen, because there's a lot. But we are about to the point in that storyline where it starts having crossovers with the other 3 stories. So I'm going to start telling the other 3 stories and getting them established so we can start having crossovers, because all 4 of those main series is crossover a lot. They're all in the same world. They're all on the same planet. They're all under the Phoenixes Rising title. So that's where we're going to leave it. We're going to leave the 3 of them. We've got our Sovereign, who's in charge of our country. We have Sir Peter, the general of Azarium's armies. And we have Sir Jake, the captain of the Royal Guards.